Awesome. Thank you everyone so much for joining us today. We're going to get started really quickly here, right on time. So appreciate you all being so logged on and ready. This will be a super kind of casual discussion. We've got some slides to highlight a few points, but please, the attendees, feel free to drop notes in the chat if you like, ask questions. I'll be monitoring that as we kind of go through. So happy to weave your questions in. And then we'll make sure to make some time at the end for additional questions also. Quick introduction to myself, and then I'm going to introduce our guest here really quick. I'm Kelli Rodriguez. I am the Assistant Dean for Academic Affairs at Seattle University School of Law. In that role, I oversee our Master of Legal Studies in Compliance and Risk Management. And I've been with that program for about, 4 years now. I have been on Seattle University's campus for quite some time. I'm a 2014 graduate of our JD program. I also earned my Master of Sports Administration and Leadership at Seattle U. And then I've been lucky enough to be on campus as faculty and staff ever since. So really appreciate you all joining us. I've got my contact information there, and I'll include it at the end also. So don't feel like you need to scramble to write it down. But I want to kind of move along quickly to introduce our guest. And I am going to let Kelsey do most of her own introduction because she knows her career much better than I ever could. But Kelsey is a semi-recent grad of our MLS program, and it's been such a joy to get to know you and work with you over the last few years. I was hoping that you might be able to give us an introduction to kind of your current role, and really curious to hear about what inspired you or initially drew you to our program.
Yeah, so my name's Kelsey. I'm currently the inventory control and vendor manager for Onza Gems, which is a wholesale rough gem company here in Seattle, Washington. I have been in the jewelry kind of sector for about the past like 8 years or so. Kind of in and out, but that's been primarily the bulk of my career so far has been within jewelry in different organizations here in Washington. I first started in the jewelry industry about like freshly 21. I had just turned 21 and I'd gotten my first, big girl job with Ben Bridge. Here in Washington. I was working in their home office that sits here in Seattle. And as I was starting out in the industry, I was noticing a lot of different like legal things that were piquing my interest. And the biggest concern that I had was we have all of these compliant like frameworks for diamonds, but I wasn't seeing anything for other precious gemstones. And so I kept asking the question of why don't we have that? Why aren't we using these frameworks and applying it in different sectors in this industry? Like, what's the holdup there? And so a lot of my bosses who had been in the industry for decades at that point were like, that's a great question. I don't have an answer for that. And so it was around the time that I was finishing up my bachelor degree with Washington State University. And so I started looking into master's programs and trying to see if there was a way for me to kind of dive more into that topic, as it was just a burning question within me that I was like, I really want to know the answer and I really want to figure this out. This is an industry that I just immediately fell in love with. And I was like, okay, how can I make it better? And so that led to me finding Seattle U and the compliance program. And so I was kind of a butt and asked for information, like pretty much like 2 semesters before I was graduating.
Oh, that's great. You were never a nuisance. Please know that.
Yeah. So I was having like pretty much weekly conversations about the program and like really talking and asking all these questions. And so once I graduated, I had about like a 6-month period where I was just like, okay, I'm going to give myself like a year off before I go and, start applying for programs. Well, then I got bored and I was like, I think I'm going to apply for a master's now. And so I ended up pulling trig. And yeah, just applying for the program. I applied for 3 different master's programs within compliance. And Seattle U was the one that got to me first and was offering a scholarship. And so I said, okay, bet, let's go that.
Yeah, yeah, great. That's awesome. Well, like I said, I've so enjoyed getting to know you, and I'm super excited. I don't know much about the world of gemstones except for the fact that I love to wear them.
Yeah.
And we hear so much about how compliance is its own skill set, and we've got several students in the program who are not, we've got kind of our core focus areas. But I'm super excited to hear about kind of how this fits into your world. So could you, kind of before we get into like the gem side of it, could
Mhm.
you describe a couple of courses or maybe 1 or 2 courses that kind of reshaped or honed your view of how you approach compliance?
Yeah, I think so for the courses that really impacted me, I feel that the financial compliance courses that I took and the financial like risk management courses that I took, especially with one professor. I'm spacing out on her name. She sits in New York. She
So,
works.
Professor uh DeMoro.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. She was an absolute delight, and she is just so highly passionate about like financial fraud in that sector. And you can really feel it when you're in her courses. She's just any lecture, she's talking a million miles per hour.
Yeah.
She wants to explain everything. She's talking about how it's a impactful in the industry now, and she's giving real life, things that are happening within her job. And then she's calling on you and being like, okay, like, how are you seeing these connections? And it's really great. And she really pushes you to, really think deeper about it, which I think was really great. Her and Frank, Professor Frank,
Yeah.
were 2 professors that I just really enjoyed their coursework with. And they're just such insightful people and really wanted to like dig in with you. And they're gonna cold call on you, and then they're gonna sit there and have 15 minutes worth of questions to push you further, which sometimes made me wanted to cry when I felt
It can be daunting for sure.
underprepared, but it really pushed me to think deeper about what they were asking and how I could really, see the connections in real life, which I think is really beneficial.
Right, right. You bring up a question that's kind of, it wasn't initially something I was thinking about, but I mean, some of our students ask like, um, how this fits into life and everything. And I try and be really honest that like, this is very much law school, right? It's rigorous, it's challenging. How did you navigate your way through that? Were there any tips you would offer? Like if you go back and tell yourself a couple of years ago, like what would you tell a prospective student or yourself around how to just kind of lean into that or navigate better, I suppose?
Yeah, I think the biggest, while it is a master's program, like you said, it is still law school. You are still part of the law school. And I think that is something that there was moments where I wasn't really, paying attention to. And then I got hit with a bad grade and I was like, oh, it is law school.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
can't, fudge my way through like I did with, my bachelor's degree type deal. And so yeah, it just, I think the biggest takeaway for me was just, it's going to be hard and it's going to be rough. There are going to be, bad grades that you get because it is law school, and these are working professionals who most of them have a Juris Doctorate and have been a practicing lawyer at some point or another before they switch more so into whether it's legal writing or like the financial sector. So they are just people who have so much information to give to their students. And I think a big takeaway I would have is ask questions.
Yeah.
Really ask questions. Like any question that comes to mind, ask one of these professors, because they want to give you this information. Frank is, one, he's a professor that really likes to talk, and he really wants to talk to you about the different like topics that are interested to you. And he's willing to like sit down and have those conversations
Yeah.
with you. And I think, having meeting them during their like online office hours, sending an email, like sending a late email, and just having that connection with them is going to take you farther in this program, because it's going to make you want to dig into it more. Building those connections is really important, and it helps, get the conversation going, I would say.
Yeah, no, you bring up a really good point. I mean, we do very deliberately, all of our faculty are, well, all but a couple are adjuncts. And that's
Mm-hmm.
because they are, many of them have JDs, but they are working every day in the fields that they are teaching. And so they bring such a real world understanding of how compliance meets, where rubber meets the road there. Um, and having said that, right, it is very much law school, but it is also a really different program, like our than a JD, right? Our program is very much designed to be operational and teach students to work with problems that they're going to solve in their workspace, right? In the compliance
Mm-hmm.
world versus whereas the JD can be a little bit more theoretical. And certainly
Yeah.
training people to be litigators primarily. So no, I really appreciate that. And I'm super excited to hear about your capstone project and kind of how did you land on this capstone topic? And how has it translated to where you're at in your career now? Because I'll be honest, you were the first student we've ever had coming from an industry like this. We've had many students coming from industries that are outside our primary focus areas. Like we've had students in food service, we've had students in food and beverage, like in alcohol sales.
Mm-hmm.
We've had students in the cannabis industry. We've had a lot of students outside of our primary focus areas, but I've never had a student in gemstone. So tell me all about it.
Yeah. So when I started with Bembridge in like 2018, like I said earlier, it was a topic that was really close to my heart. And so I got closer, as I got more in the industry, I started doing more things that would push me further in this industry. So I have an AJP, which is Applied Jewelry Professional from GIA, which is the big gemological institute here in America. They're the ones that are, looking at stones and, doing the research on them, finding the chemical makeup, and all of that. And so this was something I was like, this is my passion and I really want to delve into it. And so when I was doing my application for the program, my essay that you have to write for it, I just spoke about the industry and that this was my passion and that I wanted to do my thesis on this subject, and that I was going in knowing that at the end of the road, I was going to spend 3 months researching this, and that this is all I wanted to do. And so I was very truthful in that regard. And so, you guys were like, whoa, this is kind of crazy. Yeah,
It was
come,
cool. It was very
yeah,
cool.
come join us.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's been an interesting journey in that regard, where all of the courses I were taking, I was just kind of looping it back to the gemstone industry and figuring out, okay, all these, different regulations and whatnot, how do they play into this industry? What are the ones that I have to be aware of going deeper in this industry? And I think the biggest takeaway I had was the financial courses were actually super beneficial in the fact that gems are pretty much considered like hard cash.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
It's a tangible item that has a lot of worth behind it. And so that's why you see, you know, the whole blood diamond debacle that happened in the 90s with in Syria alone. It was kind of like those certain things that I was finding out that I was like, okay, this is really impactful. This is really interesting to know.
Yeah, no, that's great. I want to kind of reiterate detour here. For those who have just joined us, we had a few people just join us a few minutes late. Feel free to put questions in the chat. We'll weave them in. There will be time for some questions at the end also. So we've talked a little bit about like kind of compliance across different industries. And I mentioned that we've had students outside of our primary like focus areas. We've had several students outside the primary focus areas. And I'm curious how one of the things that the program does focus on is compliance as its own skill set, right? Those first 6 classes that all of our students take are very much about how to build a compliance program, how to, do risk management, audit, those sorts of things. What does compliance look like in the jewelry industry? Is there anything in those classes? And you talked about the financial classes, but I'm curious, are there tools that you use in your work that you specifically learned in the program?
Yeah, so compliance in the jewelry and gem industry is really interesting in the fact that there's not a lot that exists.
Yeah, right.
Um, it's a very much people are set in their ways and everyone wants to be right about it. And so it's a lot of conversations that the industry is having where everyone's on the same page of this is an issue and that we need to fix it, but everyone is fighting over whose wording is correct.
Oh,
Everyone
interesting.
has slightly different wording in what they use. So you'll see people using, like, for example, recycled gold is a term that people are throwing around around right now. And a lot of people have different feelings about that word and that it, devalues the meaning of gold and all that types of thing. It's a lot of fighting within. And so within my research, I touch base on that and the fact that, everyone is on the same page in regards to this, but no one wants to, admit that someone's wording is better. Everyone
Right.
wants to assume that what they're doing within their company is the best way and that everyone should follow them. So like Tiffany and Chalkboard and like a bunch of like the big name guys like De Beers, which they control like 90% of the diamond industry. They want to be right and they don't want to let anyone else in to say, okay, yes, you're right. Let's expand it and make it a little more neutral so we can take it and apply it to other companies. And so we have different like NGOs that have popped up recently that are, trying to work and like get people to come together. So a big one is the Jewelry Responsible Council.
Okay.
They are a third-party organization that is going into these companies and auditing their compliance and seeing how like close they are to the mark and are giving them guidance on like how to get on track and how to expand their risk management and whatnot. Sorry, group.
No, you're fine.
The work group chat is blowing up.
No worries, you're fine.
Yeah, so it's been really interesting in that regard, and there's a lot of debate in the industry about the regulations that we have in place right now. So the big one that we have in place right now is something called the Kimberley process.
Okay.
It is what ensures diamonds are coming from an ethical supply chain and aren't, funding war.
Yeah.
And so right now, you may or may not have seen it in the news cycle in the past year or so, but in the US, we're technically not supposed to be buying Russian mined diamonds.
Okay. Didn't know that. Okay.
Because of the conflict with
Yeah.
Ukraine. They came down pretty quickly and they said, okay, we're not going to allow Russian diamonds to come into the US. All of these companies have to, change their supply chain if they are. Well, there's a huge loophole
For sure, yeah.
There's a huge legal loophole that a lot of the House representatives and whatnot on both sides of the aisle are trying to come together to close.
Okay.
Obviously that's on pause right now.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
um, but it's, yeah, so it, what is happening right now in the industry is these Russian diamonds are being sent to India to be cut. Well, once they've been cut in India, they have undergone a extensive transformation. And so now their origin is considered India.
Sure. That makes sense. Yeah.
And India doesn't have a good chain of
Hmm.
command right now of making sure that the Russian diamonds aren't getting into the population with the like Botswana diamonds and like
Right.
their diamonds. And so it's really hard to know for sure if you are getting a Russian diamond or not.
Mhm.
And I know for some of the Indian cutters, they're talking on their website that, yeah, we're sourcing from Russia. And so that was something that I was bringing up when I was still at Ben Bridge. I was like, hey, these three diamond vendors that we're buying from are actively saying that they're sourcing diamonds from Russia.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Right. Right.
you
So
can't you can't buy them.
how does that show up in your day-to-day work? Is that really like on your, when you go to work and you log in, is that kind of what your work involves? Ensuring that the jewels that you or gemstones that you're purchasing are compliant, not just with this particular law, but all of like the other policies and regulations then? Do you have to create policies? Are you communicating with buyers? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, so because I'm with a wholesaler, I am working directly with the mines. I'm
Mhm.
working
Oh, wow, cool.
directly with the mines in Tanzania and in Kenya. And so the company I'm with currently, ANSA, um, we go out to Africa to buy from them.
Wow, that's amazing.
We're controlling the flow of money, and we're
Mhm.
making sure that money is actively going into the hands of these miners.
Mhm.
So for us, we're able to tell you where this stone was mined, who the miner was, what village they're from. We're able to give you that whole storyline.
Awesome.
That's something that's really unique to us. We're one of the few, people that have that capability and are actively making sure that we can give you that story, because that is something that our owner, Monica Stephenson, is really big on. She's been in this industry for like in her entire life. And this is something that she is so actively passionate about, and that she wants to make sure that, these miners are being treated with respect, and that they're getting the education to know what they're pulling out of the ground, and what it's worth. So when we do market days in Africa, we're sitting down with the miner and we're telling them what sort of gemstone that they have and what it's actually worth.
That's awesome.
And
That's awesome.
so we're training them to be able to recognize these gemstones and know what it's worth in the rough. So when we go back like the following year, they can barter with us.
Mhm.
They can sit there and be like, well, actually, no, this piece is worth more based on XYZ and what you have told me. And so another aspect of it is we're trying to get more of the money into Tanzania and in Kenya. And so part of that is we're part of a larger organization that goes by Moyo Gems. It is 3 wholesalers that have come together and are actively working with small scale miners
Okay.
in Africa and in Brazil. And then I think we have, um, there's one other location that one of the people is working out of usually. And but yeah, we're training them. And another thing that they've started recently is they're adding in a gem cutting school,
Oh, wow. That's
so
cool.
that we can buy faceted gems from them in Tanzania and make sure more money is going towards them. And
That's
so
awesome.
we've started like a scholarship fund for them to where we will pay for like 3 students to go through this program and learn how to cut, because we want to get more money into their hands. We're currently working with a lot of gem cutters here in the United States. And then we also are working with a family-owned and operated gem cutting business in Chiang Mai, Thailand. And
Wow.
they're doing it all by hand still. And they're
Wow. Oh my
like
gosh.
these tiny, tiny, like 3 millimeter stones. And they're
Wow.
gorgeous.
That's
And it's
awesome.
all by hand. And so we're working with people. We're
Hmm.
making it to where it's people first, and we want to, make sure that they're knowing what they're doing and that it has a better impact. And so that's what's like really selling our stones. And we just
Yeah.
got back from a show in Brooklyn, and everyone was blown away by that. They're like, this is the
Cool.
story I want to be able to tell
Yeah.
my
Yeah, for sure.
customers, kind
Yeah.
of.
That's awesome. I remember little details, but I'm hoping you can share the story about how you got into this role because it had something to do with the connection you made in your capstone, right?
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have a lot of connections being in this industry for X amount of years. And so I reached out. I had my when I was at Benbridge, our VP of merchandise gave me an introduction email to um, Sarah Yude, who is the CEO and head counsel of JVC, which is it's like another responsible jewelers organization. And then that conversation, she was my mentor for my whole capstone. And through her, I was able to do a bunch of interviews with really big people in this within this realm. I was, talking to the head of mining operations for a company called Gemfields that is the biggest supplier of rubies, sapphires, and emeralds
That's so
over
cool.
in Europe. And I was able to have a conversation with him. I was able to have a conversation with this field gemologist called named Vincent, who is essentially like the Indiana Jones of gemstones. He's like out in the field,
Wow.
like working with these people. He's a certified diver, so he can dive
Oh
for
my gosh.
pearls in Japan.
Wow. That's so
Like
cool.
he's absolutely crazy in that regard. So he was really hard to track down because every other time I was emailing him, he was somewhere out in the field.
Oh, wow.
And then she introduced me to all of the members of Moyo Gems.
Okay. Cool.
And so I had conversations with all of them, and I had a really long conversation with Monica Stephenson, who is the owner of Ansa. Um, and she was so insightful. She was absolutely a delight to talk to. And we just continued a conversation like throughout
Cool.
my research. She was someone I could email and be like, hey, so and so said this, like, do you have any like more information for me? And she would lead me down, a path. And so after I submitted my capstone and I, got 500 out of 500 passed, Frank left a really beautiful note and said that, this research paper should be a benchmark for your industry. And I was like,
That's
okay,
awesome.
thanks.
Congratulations. That's so cool. Yeah.
I, sent my research paper to Monica and I was just like, thank you so much for everything that you helped me with during this journey over the summer. I've, since then completed my program and I've passed, and I just wanted to share with you my final
Wow.
research and, you know, let's continue a conversation. She read it. She told me, you're right on the money about pretty much everything. And I really want to see how you can apply this in practice. And so that led to a conversation about me coming and joining the team. And
That's so cool.
yeah, after they came back from Africa, she was like, okay, I'm ready to have another team member join my team. will you come join us? And I said,
That's
yes,
awesome.
please.
That's so great. I am so thrilled for you. Like I said, it's been just a joy to get to know you and watch your growth. It's been incredible. I want to be really respectful of your time, just highlighting a couple of other things about the program, and then happy to open it up for questions if anybody has any. Um, I think we hit on most of the stuff. I think the only thing I would note on this slide, right, just some highlights around our concentrations. And I would underscore that these are not exhaustive, right? We note these concentrations because we have electives in those areas very consistently. It's an easy way for students to identify kind of like what track they may or may not want to pursue. But I do want to mention that students can take electives across any of these tracks, right? You're not restricted to just healthcare electives or just data and cybersecurity electives. As Kelsey points out really well, the finance electives overlap with a lot of other things, and healthcare overlaps with things too. So I would encourage you all, if you're thinking about kind of growing your skill set in compliance generally, these electives can be applied to almost anything, right? I've mentioned Kelsey's in gemstones. We've got students who are in food safety, cannabis law. I mean, compliance is in of itself its own skill set. So the classes are fully online. We do, if you are an MLS student, you can take classes on campus. We do have some electives on campus for those who are local, but there's no need to come on campus. I think, Kelsey, I saw you at commencement, right? For the first
Yes.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's no need to come on campus at any point if you are not wanting to. It's structured to be part-time, but we do have students who ramp things up, and we've also got students who slow things down and take a course each term rather than the recommended 2 courses per term. And at 2 courses per term, it's about 24 months. It's a 30 credit program. Happy to answer questions about all of that. And then the last couple of details, our classes begin in spring a little bit later this year, which is exciting. So we've got classes starting on January 20th. It gives all of us a nice long winter break. And our scholarship deadline is coming up in a couple of weeks. We've got November 3rd for those who are interested in prioritizing scholarships. We do give scholarships to most of our students. Most of our students are qualify for scholarships. And then our final deadline for the term for spring start is December 8th. Sorry, I was drawing a little bit of a blank there. So you've got another couple of months for that final deadline. And then just wanted to put up my information for those of you who didn't have a chance to grab it earlier. Please don't hesitate to reach out and let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to chat through program options, talk about coursework, any of that stuff. Kelsey and I were on the phone a lot. Just, life is hard. Sometimes this program is not easy, and it is super rewarding. I love getting to connect with our students. I'm the advisor for all of our MLS students, and it's one of my favorite roles in this
Yeah,
position.
I will say for sure, yeah. I definitely send Kelly several emails at midnight of me crying and being like, I'm flunking out, it's the end of the world, I'm gonna die. And Kelly responding pretty quickly, being like, you're fine, please calm down. And just really talking me
Are.
off the bridge. She is
Yeah.
an absolute delight in the fact that she is so willing to meet you where you are and help walk you through it. And if you have any sort of, issues and, struggles, she's such a good person to lean on and help walk you through. So I'm a student who has a learning disability, and that's something I mentioned to Kelly after a pretty rough first semester. And she immediately was jumping the gun and being like, hey, here's what we can do to help you on that. So she's like, listen, I understand this struggle. I understand what you're feeling. We have all these sources for you to help make it easier for you. And that was something that was really beneficial and helpful of being like, okay, yes, it is law school, but they're willing to help me. And
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
something that I was really afraid of when I was going into the program of, okay, we'll see how this goes because this is going to be a lot of work type
Yeah.
deal.
Yeah.
But yeah, she was just absolutely helpful. She definitely, walked me back a couple of times. I mean, told my mom, like when I met her at graduation, was like, this is
Oh,
the
your
woman
mom
who
was so
saved my
sweet.
life. She
Uh,
helped me so much. And my mom
you
being
made
like,
me cry. It was so sweet.
thank you. She's like, thank you for dealing with her. She's
It
like,
was
I
great.
saw firsthand.
I love getting to know students. So, let's see, there was one question that came in the chat, and I'm happy to answer it. The question was whether students from other countries can apply for scholarships. Yes, our scholarships are available to students who are not US residents. There's several tiers of scholarships, the ones that are applicable to the MLS program. Yes, absolutely. Any last thoughts or anything you want to share, Kelsey? No pressure at all.
Yeah, I mean, if you're really thinking about this program and you're kind of hemming and hawing, I would say do it. Go ahead and submit the application. This is a program that, while it is a lot of work, is really rewarding. It's really rewarding to sit in these courses and really pick the minds of these professionals, and learn more about this industry. A lot of the students within my cohort were taking this course because they wanted to eventually go on and earn their Juris Doctorate. And so if you're kind of in that mindset as well, I would say it's a good introduction to, one, how law school works, and two, just an introduction to what the course work would be.
Yeah.
On another note, I will say, if you are using this as a stepping stone to, get into a Juris Doctorate program, don't let that be the only reason.
Yeah, for sure.
Really take this program for what it's worth. There's a lot of really amazing information that you can take away from this and apply in practice right away. And that's something that I was able to do within this program, was any sort of coursework that I was doing that I thought was applicable to my current job, I was taking to work, and I was sitting with my boss and bombarding her with, all these sort of like legal questions. At Benbridge, our the head legal counsel was someone who went to Seattle U and did her Juris Doctorate with the law school there. And so she was always someone who was willing to, if she was in office, I was able to go into her office and sit down and ask her all these questions and figure out, okay, what's the connections
Yeah.
here within this industry? Where can we make this, like, a better place, and kind of thing. So just be annoying with questions is what
Yeah.
I would say.
Curious for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're gonna get cold called on anyway, so be the person who speaks up first. Just take that and just go with it, just run with it, and
Yeah.
you're gonna get a lot more out of the program if you kind of do that.
Yeah, no, I wholeheartedly agree. And if you are thinking about a Juris Doctor, definitely reach out. We should have a conversation. There are pros and cons. It's a really different program in all of the ways that Kelsey described, super operational. We've had JD students who are licensed attorneys come back and do some of these classes because it's such a different skill set. And there's some things that we should talk through if you're not sure yet which path you want to go on. But I really, really appreciate all of your help, Kelsey, all of your time today, and just learning more about compliance and gemstones, nothing I ever thought about.
Yeah, it's
Thank
a
you so
really
much.
fascinating industry. And so, I mean, if people are interested in learning more, I am willing and wanting to gab more about it.
Yeah,
So
no, that's great. If you're interested, let me know and I can connect you with Kelsey.
yeah, exactly.
Thank you so much, Kelsey. I really appreciate it. Everyone else, please feel free to reach out if you have any other questions.
Yeah, of course.
All right, talk to you soon. Thanks again.
Yep.